conversation, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Naperville Park District Board of Commissioners. This is our regular board meeting, Thursday, September 21st, 2017. Time is 6:30. Bridget, would you call the roll, please?
President Riley?
Here.
Vice President Janner?
Here.
Commissioner Carlson?
Here.
Commissioner Egan?
Present.
Commissioner Ensign?
Here.
Commissioner King?
Here.
Commissioner Todd?
Here.
Do we have anyone sign up from the public to speak?
Do not.
Next item then is the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to accept consent agenda item A.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please, Bridget.
Vice President Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes.
Move to approve consent agenda as accepted as voice vote.
Second.
Motion is second. Call the roll, please. Oh, no, this is voice
No,
vote.
voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is unfinished business. We have no unfinished business. We'll move on to new business. Moving into discussion items. First item is the park maintenance presentation and discussion.
Thank you, President Riley. First of all, we do have a guest. So my name is Kevin Finnegan. I serve as the Director of Parks. Evolution of Naperville Park maintenance practices. What you are going to hear about tonight is our current practices and a timeline. You're going to hear a discussion on fertilizers and how they work. You're going to hear a focus on parks and on playgrounds and how we're going to change our practices there. Also going to talk about how we notify people that use our parks when we do use those chemicals and topicals and other applications. And we're going to talk about the impacts and then the next steps. Here we're starting out with a timeline. This is not something new to us. Back in 2004, approximately, we did start the use of natural and organic practices here at our very own Knock Park. In 2009, the district did establish an employee-led green team. Now, the green team does not only work on park-related matters, but they work on items such as recycling, things that impact the environment, as well as internal policies. And then in 2012, all parks started to experiment with the use of natural and organic products. A lot of them were new at the time. Some of them were actually cost prohibitive, or they were harder to use. There was some success, but overall it was very, very limited. 2015, though, a lot of the products became more affordable, and especially in the areas of fertilizer, we were able to get them in larger quantities, up to 2,000 pounds, I believe, in the bag. And what we're going to engage on now over the next couple of years is some changes to 7 other parks, as well as our playgrounds. And in 2019, approximately at this time, we will evaluate these successes of those. One of our core values, environmental education, stewardship, and sustainability. This is what drives us in the parks area. To promote natural resource management and sustainability, plus it's just the right thing to do. Current initiatives, we are part of the DuPage watershed group, so obviously we always try to lessen any runoff, whether it's from our parks or from our sidewalks. So as a transition here, we always used to use sodium chloride. Now we have evolved to using calcium. About 7 years ago, we eliminated the use of coal tar sealants on our parking lots. And of course, throughout all that time, we have been striving to use more environmentally responsible practices in both weed control and fertilizer. This is just a quick overview of how we maintain our parks. We basically have 6 different modes. The higher the mode, the more frequency that these parks get, whether it's in turf care, mowing, and other types of work. Within each mow, it has a turf care module. And I'll get into how we explain that next. Turf maintenance, it's about making fields safe to absorb impact. The best weed control that anyone can do is a very well-managed lawn. It just won't allow weed seeds to grow. A dense, vigorous lawn will choke out weak seedlings way before they can get established. Managing surface hardness is very, very critical because you want to have safe fields. Approximately 15% of concussions in football and soccer, they result from head impacts. Head injury risk can be reduced by ensuring that our turf is safe. Just as an example, our two synthetic fields, Commissioners measures of 117, Nike measures of 107. We always use the range here for high schools, between 33 and 167. For any of you Green Bay Packer fans here, he sees frozen tundra is at 3 and 3. I'm not going to read this word for word, but this basically describes how we maintain our turf in our athletic fields. You basically have to use a lot of aeration, fertilizer, you have to top dress and compost. And when you do it all right and you do it all in the right timing of the year, it actually works. We also manage in invasive areas in our parks. Here we have a strip of parcel here that was just totally overrun. And over here, staff will go in and remove that stuff. But then after we do that, we do have to chemically treat the stumps so that it all doesn't grow back, because otherwise it's just a waste of our time. Here's an example of other hard to control areas. Here's a fence line along this is taken from a city of Chicago park. You can see here the heavy use of glyphosate. And over here, this is what happens when you don't do proper turf maintenance. The soil becomes compounded, and all that can grow there is weeds. Here is another example of well-maintained turf over here. But over here, you see what happens. This is a picture from another district. It was overrun with grubs. Skunks got to it because they love it. Obviously, this field now is unplayable. And now we're going to hear about fertilizers from Carl.
Okay, we're going to talk about fertilizers and in relation to how the correct choice of fertilizer and the correct use of fertilizer can help you reduce your lawn applications later for weeds and that kind of thing. So to get going, hang with me, I'll get you there. It all ties in. We're going to talk a little bit about fertilizers and what they mean and how they work. So this comes to us straight from the 1940s. It was out of an old textbook on how to grow things. And it talks about complete fertility and the elements that you need for your turf grass, in our case, to grow well. And it talks about the big three. And the big three elements that you buy when you buy a bag of fertilizer is going to be the nitrogen. It's also going to be your phosphorus. It's also going to be your potassium or your potash. So talk about nitrogen first, because that's where all your money is. Most of that bag of fertilizer that you buy, you're paying for the nitrogen. What does nitrogen do for us? Well, it gives you a good flush of green growth. It's all the top growth. So if you look at the left-hand picture of this plant, you know, a little fertilizer, nitrogen is good. A little too much, the plants get a little bit leggy. A little too little nitrogen, and they become stunted. They really don't look all that good. So what are your sources of nitrogen? There's a number of ways to get it. And what they've done now is they've put a couple of exemplary bags here of various forms that you can buy your nitrogen in. If you look here on the left, this is the synthetic nitrogen. So even back in the 40s, they knew how to make synthetic nitrogen. And if you imagine each of those bags weighing 50 pounds, you can see that the synthetic nitrogen is 45%. That bag, whatever it weighs, is 45% nitrogen. So it's a very potent fertilizer. There's other ways to get your nitrogen, and the least technologically advanced one, the organic version, is here's manure, horse manure, right? And what that shows you is that 0.5%, 1/2 of 1% of that bag is actually nitrogen. Okay, well, clearly if you're putting nitrogen down, this is the way you want to go. Or is it? We're going to get you to the point where we're going to try and explain that a lot of the synthetic can be offset by a little bit of natural. So moving to phosphorus, your phosphates are mined out of the ground. So they are actually, it's a solid material, it gets mined out of the ground, it gets processed, and then that's how you get your phosphorus in a conventional fertilizer. Go down here, and you see that it's also in the manure. Again, in that bag of phosphorus, if it's coming from a manure source, an organic source, it's a very low percentage of that bag. However, once again, a little bit can equal a lot. We'll get to that. Phosphorus, of course, gives you a strong flower, a lot of flowering, it gives you strong roots, makes the plant just generally tougher. Potassium is the last of the big three that you're going to be paying for when you buy that fertilizer. And potassium is needed for all the other nutrients to get into the plant. So if you don't have potassium and you've got the other stuff, nothing happens. It's an ion pump that happens at the roots. And without one, you don't get the other. So potassium is hugely important. Now, if you mine it out of the ground, and it's called muriate or sulfate of potash, if you mine it out of the ground, you put it in a bag, 50% of that bag is potassium. So it's a very strong, potent fertilizer. If you're using manure to provide your potassium, of that bag, 0.4% of that entire bag would be potassium. So it's a lot weaker. But again, we'll get you there. One can sort of equal the other. So look under the tree, and they describe what a good soil is. And a good soil is basically like a sponge. They define it as soil conditioned to hold water properly, which permits a steady supply of a weak food solution. What that means is if it were a sponge, if you squeeze it, you can get water out of it. If you put water into it, it'll hold it. If you need airspace, which all plants and everything in the soil does, it's always there. So when you're trying to create a good soil to grow in, you want basically to create a sponge under the turf level. So go back up to the top. And this I thought was really clever. I don't know who hand drew this in, but a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? And here you are trying to grow something. These are the things that would determine how well you do. Well, location, you don't have much of a choice. You're growing where it is you're trying to grow. Humus is a byproduct of bacteria that makes the soil get that nice sponge consistency that we're looking for. Moisture, well, that is helped by a good soil, but obviously you have to have it. Drainage, again, helped by a good soil with that sponge type deal. This is kind of amazing. This bacteria is recognized as a very important thing back in the 40s. It's being rediscovered now as if it's new. Well, it wasn't. They knew this before. We forgot it. We're learning it again. And then finally, the food elements, which are the fertilizer components that we just talked about. Too fast. Okay, so the evolution of our fertilizer choices and what we've been using here at the Park District. So 15 years ago, we used a non-organic fertilizer. It's called a petrochemical fertilizer. It's highly processed. A lot of fuel goes into producing it. It gives you a very effective fertilizer. We already talked about like the synthetic stuff being very strong. You put it down, you get a quick flush of growth, so you think you got really a good deal going. It fits in our spreaders. It goes out real well. So it's been the standard of the industry. Downside is they're all salts. All these things are salts, and you're basically putting salt on your soil. If you want to destroy a soil, put salt in it. Why can't you grow next to the sidewalk where you salt for snow every year? It's loaded with salt. So that's the downside of it. So you have to use more as time goes by, plus you're kind of destroying the soil. So what we did about 5 years ago, we started introducing milorganite into this, which was an organic component. And we could get a little bit of that in there. Milorganite we'll talk about, but that's just, it's a biosolid. It's kind of the next step toward going to organics. But at NOC, we've always used NOC here as a test platform for anything that we wanted to do that was new. And we went to all organic fertilizer, organic based. So this is really more of the dried feathers, dried blood, chopped up pieces of the animal nobody else wanted, bone meal, all the stuff nobody else has a use for, but it does have a very good use as an organic fertilizer. So the nice thing about organic fertilizer, it doesn't give you that big flush of growth, so it's not as showy, but it fixes the soil underneath, and then we'll get to why that's really important. Okay, so to understand why organics work so well, you have to get to the idea that bacteria are not bad. Bacteria in the soil make everything happen, and in this case, there's a lot of happy, good bacteria here telling you that, get over the idea that it's bad. We're fostering these guys to live and grow and die, because when they do, they make that sponge-like consistency of the soil that we're trying to get. So when you feed a soil with organics, because that's kind of what you're doing, you improve these guys' chances of living and doing the right thing. So go to the left, and there's your single blade of grass. Now you've got two ways to feed it. If you look on the right side, you're using the conventional non-organic fertilizer. What that does is you put it on the ground, it gets wet, those nutrients are released, and the plant can take it up. You get the green flush of growth, everything's good. Except for the fact you're really not doing anything to improve the soil, and as you use more and more of it over the years, you're actually going the wrong way. If you go on the left, you talk about organic fertilizers. Well, again, that's all the pieces of the animals that no one else wanted to use, but when you apply that to the soil, and it breaks down into organic matter, and the soil nutrients are released from it, and the microorganisms, these little bacteria and fungi, feed on it, they then release nutrients in abundance that the plant can use. So whereas the synthetic stuff gives you a lot, at least on the bag, and the organic does not, you get a lot more activity here for the plant to grow, plus you've improved the soil. All right, so definition of organics. Depends who you talk to. There's a lot of ways to look at it. Organic to a chemist means that it's just a compound that has carbon. Organic as a person, if you know John Ripsky, you know he's the definition of organic that's grounded, down to earth, the salt of the earth, and that's exactly what John is. Organic also means non-altered. It's something that comes in its non-altered state. So in this case, we're talking about horse manure. And what we use at our garden plots, and have for years now, is we haul in, I'm guessing around 100 tons of horse manure every winter, and we put it out in a big pile, and bucket load by bucket load, or wheelbarrow by wheelbarrow, it goes out into the garden plots, and folks improve their soil. And we're doing the right thing organically, and it doesn't cost us a dime except for hauling it in. The gentleman here is one of our employees. That's Raphael. He works for us. He has an organic garden plot with us and doesn't use any fertilizers and has great success. His plants are huge, lots of fruit. He takes manure and he puts it in underneath each little plant, just like Native Americans used to do with fish. You heard those stories, right? And has great success. So he's kind of the poster boy of this does actually work. All right, so the plants tell the difference. Fertilizer salesman will tell you that it doesn't matter how that plant gets the nutrition that it needs, it's still going to grow. They don't know the difference. To that I would say this, you look at that on the picture there, and over here, if you're taking pills every day to get your vitamins, you're getting them. Or is it a lot healthier for you to have eaten this stuff, all these fruits and vegetables, gotten all the side effects of the fiber and the juice and everything else in there, to get that nutrition into you? It's the same thing with fertilizers, and the organics give you this sort of feel. Okay, so whether you use organics or the conventional fertilizers, you still have maintenance practices. That doesn't go away. You still have to seed, you still have to cut, you still have to fertilize, aerate, all that stuff. But what you'll see is that you can do less of it once you start using organics. Again, this is Knock Park right here, and we've got a very down-to-earth organic person driving a tractor that runs on used vegetable oil, spreading organic fertilizer. And that's probably as good as we can possibly do on a Park District level. So we do fertilize. We do aerate. And what this is a very sophisticated machine, and we're lucky to have this kind of machine because it really helps us reduce compaction in the soil. It's basically a series of drills that drills holes in the ground, opens it up for water and moisture, all these wonderful things. Takes gas, takes an operator, and just really a nice piece of technology. But the ironic part is if you use organic fertilizers, you kind of get the same thing for free. Those bacteria in the soil on a much smaller scale, that's exactly what they do. So we've developed a way to expedite what they do, but it's the same thing without the machine. All right, so Occasionally, we do have to apply lawn care products, and there's no doubt. Our turf is under a lot of pressure, and we want to keep it looking good and safe and playable. You know, so, but is it something to be concerned about? Well, here's one of our sprayer rigs. He's out spraying Knock Park. But in this case, it's not a bad thing. It's a chelated iron. It's an iron product. It's similar to taking iron, if you're taking iron pills. And what we found out over the years, a little bit of iron is good for grass. A lot of iron doesn't bother it. Too much iron kills the dandelions, but it doesn't bother the grass. So in this case, we're just putting down a liquid iron. And it's another way to control the broadleaf weeds and dandelions in your turf. Now at Knock, we've never gone wall to wall, and I don't think anyone here in the district does. You know, if you are hiring in a lawn service, they're going to spray you wall to wall, because that's what they do, right? That's what they're paid for. We pick out the bad spots, and that's where we spray. Now, if we're 20 feet off of an athletic field, am I worried that there's some clover growing there? Well, no, I'm not. I mean, the athletic field, yeah, you want it clean. Off to the side, I would suggest that maybe this isn't so important. And then if you have a nice alley of trees here, well, you want it to look good, but how important is it that we keep this totally weed-free? So maybe it's a shift in our thinking as to what we consider is acceptable in the trade-off for, you know, cash and money to spray them and control those weeds. Okay, and changing perceptions over time, and clover is the best example I could possibly give you. Back in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and early 50s, if you bought lawn seed, it had clover in it. That was considered a desirable trait. Clover, by its own nature, likes to put nitrogen back into the soil, so you're getting free fertilizer. Who doesn't like free? Plus, if it had little flowers, it was considered attractive. Well, sometime in the 1950s, and this is the first explanation I've ever seen as to why clover went from being desirable to not, golfers started playing more prevalently, right? And they have white balls, and if you're in a fairway loaded with clover, you can't find your golf ball anymore. So golf courses, based upon products developed during World War II, could now get rid of clover. So they started, and that transferred over into lawn care at home. So what once was a very desirable plant, and the old expression was you're rolling in clover, right? That was the best place you could possibly be. Clover became a weed, in part due to really good marketing by the chemical companies. Okay, so where is this all taking us? You keep your turf healthy because you're going to put stuff like Ribfest on at India Day, football games, and you want your turf to be able to take that abuse and come back. That is the desirable part of turf. You can abuse it and it comes back. I would tell you that from when I came here, I didn't realize how much abuse turf could get and actually come back. Over the years, I'm always amazed when Ribfest leaves just how the turf does come back, but you can see it gets heavy use, and we all know that. And here's kind of an example. If you look at the upper left, this would be what Ribfest leaves us in the middle of July when it's hot and dry, and the turf is it's still there, but not in very good shape, obviously. If this was July, early July, let's say 10th maybe would have been the first day we could get back out on the fields. We start the watering, and in 6 to 8 weeks we've got everything back. Well, in part that's because of grass grew, but in part it's because we set up the soil to succeed by feeding it organics. I would say this is actually, 8 weeks is actually a little long. We had India Day after about 4 weeks this year, and the turf looked that good. Okay, so again, like I said, Knock Park has always been our test platform for moving forward with these things, whether it's least toxic weed control or whether it's organic fertilizers. This was a picture, a satellite, courtesy of satellite, 2004, Knock on the left. We had areas that you just couldn't grow turf in, year round. It was just tough, and it was just bare soil. Some of the lines from football, and you can see it, never went away. We were doing the right things, we were throwing down the fertilizer, we couldn't make it work. At 2004, we switched over to an organic program. We still did the aerating and the mowing and the watering, but you look at Knock 2016, and we've got more activity here than ever, and we can keep a decent stand of turf. And in my eyes, a lot of that goes back to the organics, feeding the soil, and setting yourself up for a really good, successful turf program. Okay. Chuck.
Tim and I will be brief, trust me. And we're just basically going to tell you what's the next step, what's the next program. So the first modification we're making is for our playgrounds. And the plan is now to basically change all the weed control product to a natural organic product that we spray within the playgrounds. The 4 listed there, the Fidura Final Sand Pulverized side, are the 4 that the 3 of us are currently using in our parks. We're giving them a try, letting staff try different ones, what they want to do. And then as new products come on, because I think Sam just sent me one yesterday that was a new product. So there was too much money in the marketplace for people not to come up with alternatives here. So there will be a lot of products coming on. So as soon as we see something come on, we will then go ahead and buy it, divide it up into three divisions and give it a shot and compare it to see how we're doing compared to what we are currently using. So in contrast, when Tim talks about the 8 designated parks, we only have one real choice of a natural organic line to control broadleaf weeds in the existing turf. And it's what Carl was referring to. The product is called Fiesta, and it's basically an iron-based product. So again, when new products come on the market, we will give them a shot and see how well they do. So in the playgrounds, the area that we're most concerned about with weed control is the area on the inside of the curb. That's where primarily the weeds and the grasses are growing. That's the only area, if staff walked into this park, that's the only area that they're going to take and apply any herbicides, no matter what type it is. They're not spraying the entire mulch area. If there's vegetation, they're eliminating it with a chemical. That's it.
But that's only organic.
That's how we would do what we've used in the past. We do it the same way. Yeah. But right now, that product is only going to be a natural organic product, correct? In addition to the weeds in the playgrounds, we're going to address all the landscape beds on the entrance sidewalks and a 15-foot arc around each of the playgrounds, and those areas too will be only treated with an organic natural product. And then in order to give our spray products a little time to dry prior to the playground being used, the plan is staff will start their applications as early as 6 a.m. weather permitting. And again, hopefully this will give the operator enough time to be in the park early and they can get to a few parks before the patrons start showing up in the parks. And again, the whole deal is we want this dry before patrons come in. Which will lead to Tim's.
All right, so building off of Chuck, in addition to all of the district's playgrounds, we're also proposing that 8 parks be maintained using only natural and organic options. So at these 8 parks and all of the playgrounds, just to be clear here, that would mean that we're only using natural and organic products for fertilizing, broadleaf weed activities, and our non-selective herbicides. So that's when you see our staff walking around with the backpack sprayers, spot spraying a lot of the tree rings and as they would in the playground areas. As you can see here on the map, all the district's parks are located in one of 8 planning zones. Those are the 8 parks that we're proposing to be a part of this process. As part of our proposal, this geographically diverse selection of locations would provide patrons with a park in each zone that would give them an option to use a park that's being maintained only using those natural and organic products. These parks were chosen to provide a sampling of the variety of options and amenities we have in our park system. And all 8 of these parks would be maintained at a service level guideline, 1 classification higher than they are currently maintained at. So for example, a Mode 3 park would now be maintained as a Mode 2 park. And these increases could result in additional maintenance practices like extra fertilizations, aerations, and broadleaf spraying activities. And then finally, these 8 parks will be monitored for the next 2 years, and the results will be compared to our current maintenance practices to establish a baseline and see how things have progressed. All right, so we also reviewed our signposting practices, and obviously these are placed out there to notify the public of any of our fertilization and herbicide activities. This lawn care application sign has content that's mandated by the state. So that's nothing we can modify. There are a bunch of rules we need to follow. We do need to have them placed directly after application, and they need to be picked up on the following day.
And that goes for non-synthetics.
Right.
That's
And
right. We have no choice.
lawn application includes fertilizers and any pesticides. So weed control, if we have grub issues or any type of activities like that.
And I just wanted to stress it's also for non-organic, or I should not, organic.
Anything.
Anything.
Although not mandated by the states, we're still going to continue to use our current pesticide notification signs for all pesticide applications and for all fertilization activities. And we'll use these signs to pre-post in advance of our applications, and we'll list a specific time frame for when we're going to be out there. The signs will include the areas to be sprayed. Like I said, we'll give you a range of the dates we might be out there. It's kind of hard to pinpoint in advance. Weather conditions change. There's people out there in the parks. We just might not be able to get out there exactly when we want to, so we'll kind of give a range. The chemical that we're going to use, and then after we've actually made the application, we're going to go back and make sure we note the date and time that the product was applied. And with that, we're back to Kevin.
Thank you. Another important item to look at here, just because you see the sign, don't panic. Because as you see here, we actually put down this part to be chemical treated with, and it's the date, but then with what? Okay, so like right here, it's with Fiesta, and it's organic. So that's a clear note to who's ever seen it, that it was treated with an organic. So, the impacts, obviously this is going to have some. The continued evolution will also mean higher blends of natural organic fertilizers are more costly. We're actually looking at this whole doping now. Our current bulk was actually a 20% molecular. We have found out that we can go to a 35% molecular at the same price. We also know that a higher level of organic based, a 50%, is somewhat close, maybe about 20% more. But then when you go up to the 80% and the 85%, which is what we will be using at the 7 other parks, the impact is a little bit more significant. The natural and organic weed control products are definitely more costly, and we're working all through that now with the budget. Going to have to require some additional equipment. This is mainly spreaders for a couple of the areas so that they have them readily available. Labor costs will increase because as we noted that these 7 parks are going to go up in interval, that means that there's going to be things done more frequently. And also the playgrounds will have to be checked more periodically. And we're going to have to rely on a lot of volunteers here. We will work with our volunteer coordinator to try and get people that are local to all of the parks to come in and out. So the next steps, as I said, we are reviewing the higher blends now. We're also going to continue to review the seasonal application processes. That's actually the timing of when we do things. We have revised the playground practices. We're going to expand to the 8 parks. That is effective basically. We'll prepare for that now, and that will be effective in 2018. However, the playground areas is effective now. And we'll continue to review the posting practices, one, to see how well we can do it and see how well it's received. And as we noted earlier, the continued evaluation of new products as we seem like they're coming out every month. And that's it. Questions? It's a beautiful area here that we're developing as a monarch habitat out of Country Lakes.
Kevin, you mentioned that we would increase the number of volunteers. I didn't understand what you were.
They would come in and hand pull.
Oh, handful.
Yeah, because we currently use them now in a lot of our natural areas. They come in and they help with, garlic mustard and other types of invasives. But you'd be surprised just having a core of 4 or 5 people that may they'd be willing to help. They could sign on as a volunteer, and when they come to the park with their kids, they'll just, pull out a few moves for us. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you. It's always informative. This will be available on the website.
We are going to develop the program and basically what it does and get that on the website. Yes.
One thing that may be beneficial, mentioned the potential increase in certain costs, right? But that's only relative to other intangible costs that aren't measured there, such as the toxicity of, kids getting sick, brain cancer, all the toxic elements of moving off 2,4-D, which is Agent Orange, off Roundup, off of all that stuff, right? And that's helpful because some people may see that and just might highlight that one thing without keeping everything in perspective, right? There's a reason, heavy marketing, right? Clover used to be great, right? I actually have tons of clover. My yard, I throw grass seed down on it on occasion, but there's tons of clover there. It just grows. It just naturally grows, right? I'm not a picky yard type. Hey, for those that like the perfect yard, that's great. That's for them, right? But, marketing plays such a impact on things that we tend to forget the relative costs offset and the other aspects of intangible costs that aren't necessarily just a hard dollar cost, right? And that's a large part of it. We have a very toxic world, so that might be something to work in there somehow.
And it's a start, and it's a process. And a lot of this is not only educating staff and residents, but it's also changing the acceptance level on the part of our.
Absolutely, education. And secondly, I'd like to find out how to help volunteers. I'll come help.
Sure.
Get my kids to come help.
Thank you.
So there will be volunteers out there.
Thank you very much.
Bless us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, next item on our agenda. Item on the agenda is truck purchase. Kevin, that's you.
Yes, and included in the weekly packet was a memo of our intention to bring to the board for approval on the replacement of one of our 2008 F-250s. This particular vehicle is assigned to a trade crew. We're fortunate to have an individual that is very skilled in house as well. So we actually have a welder that's mounted onto the back of the truck. The welder weighs around 1,500 to 1,800 pounds. And in addition to that, we also have a small little crane that can lift up to 1,000 pounds. Well, this is basically too heavy for an F-250 that carry. The fleet crew has attempted to install spacers and springs to avoid it from, if it's going over bumps and everything. Actually, bothering me now, this is taking a lot of wear and tear on this body's frame and on the suspension. So plus, it was coming up for its placement, but we'd like to replace it this year and actually replace it with a higher level F-450 that can address that weight and allow this individual to be more productive.
Are you looking for action on this this evening?
No, this will be coming in the next.
Next is November 9th, 2017 regular meeting cancellation discussion.
Yeah, that was,
Sure, I can talk.
yeah, because that was, because we had the budget meeting.
We're looking at our budget schedule. We're going to have our budget workshop on Monday, November 13th. So So we're all gonna be together on Wednesday, November 8th, in the evening for strategic planning. We have a board meeting currently scheduled for November 9th.
Then we'll be
We're
together on the
gonna be
11th.
together on Saturday for the second strategic planning. And then we're gonna be together on Monday for the budget workshop. So having said all that, what we thought about talking to you to get your input is, do we cancel the November 9th board meeting, that Thursday meeting? Just hold your business that we have that night, the night of the budget workshop, special meeting on the 13th.
Could we move the 13th to the 9th?
I'm sorry?
Could we move the 13th to the 9th to stay out Monday nights?
No, Monday.
Monday,
Unless
we always do it.
I think we did that Monday at your request initially.
To avoid Monday.
Yeah, I think Mondays were bad. We usually had it on Tuesdays. And we moved it to Mondays.
It's been on Mondays before.
I'm not gonna be able to make the Monday.
Well, it's what you, it could be out there.
So those that can make Monday.
Mondays, my Tuesdays are Mondays.
So I presume most of us probably had that November 9th work well anyway, so there's no, doesn't cause any other problem for staff. You just keep the 9th and scrap the 13th.
Would you want to change the location?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's at City Hall.
Let me just change the location to where we come on the,
We could check. Yeah.
Well, if I'm the only one that's gonna be missing, it's not. We still have 6, right, so,
but it's budget.
my favorite subject.
Right.
All right, so we'll meet the 8th, the 9th, the 11th.
Scrap the
Scrap the 13th.
Well,
And then we'll find a place for the 9th in lieu of City Hall.
Yeah.
We just need to.
Good training. Okay. All right, let's start with department updates, administration.
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to thank the park staff, Sam, Eric, everybody was involved in this 3-month process in reviewing the maintenance practices that we currently saw. A lot of work went into this. Also for Bill Burr's information, the non-toxic neighborhood group, I would not take that they're not here tonight as showing that they didn't care. You'll see they were here earlier today, took a picture with us, and certainly supported the efforts 100%. Just had other things going on this evening, but I'm speaking for them now. They do care about this passionately, and we met with them, we met with a representative of theirs earlier in the week. We went through this with them to gauge, we got the right track, or the wrong track, and obviously you can see overwhelmingly we're on the right track, certainly with that group. So there was a lot of hard work that went into this. I always say in my, 37 years of public service, we don't find many good examples of good government. That's unfortunate to say, but we don't. Been doing this too long, probably been doing this longer than anybody in this room. So I can speak from experience. This is an example of good government. This is what you put in the bottle, and put it on the shelf, and take it off and you show people this is how things are supposed to get done. At the end of the day, you may disagree with the public may disagree with you, but being very transparent and inviting people in, and listening to the suggestions, this is the result that you get. So kudos to Kevin and his staff. I think they're really tired of listening to themselves talk about this presentation. This is about what the time you had to give it. So thank you again. It means a lot to the community, certainly means a lot to me as the executive director, and I know I speak to the board, it means a lot to them. That we have this outcome. And the other thing I have, and I know I've been hounding you on different events, the one now that's a little bit time critical is the one I sent you today or yesterday, I think. Crosstown Classic. That's October 6th at 5 p.m. at North Central College, North versus Central. Those of you that are new, what that involves is give me as many names as you like within reason. And there's a picnic beforehand over by Troy Hammond, the president's house. And then you go across the street and you watch the game. But I just need to know that so that I can reach all our district with the college. Those of you that have been here a long time, Marie already got you down. So if you can let me know sooner rather than later, that I can cross off my list and move on to the next thing that I want to do about. So that's all I got.
And Ray, I'd just like to say, on behalf of the board, really, the process that you followed for this review was, it was first rate, it really was. And it was thorough, it was, unbiased, you went into it, so I think the outcome is what we're all hoping for. All the people that were involved, the attitude of the people that were here this afternoon was as positive as could be. I mean, Elizabeth came in, was talking to everybody around the room, it was great, Thank you.
Yeah, I think that it's significant that we don't just make a gut reaction, that we do our investigation, we do our homework, we bring in our experts, we inquire not only within our own park district, but we look outside of our own park district, we look at best practices, and then we make a decision, and give reasons for that. And I think that's a great process for us to follow.
And I'll just say one more thing, we're talking about needing to do strategic planning. Back in 2009, when we were working on a strategic plan then, one of the objectives we identified, one of the goals, was to be a leader in the parks and rec business. And we talked about how do you define that. This is one way to define it. Okay. Finance.
Okay, just a couple things. Recently, I sit on the Federal Finance Committee. They're working on their next year's budget. Good news is, again, I think for a lot of our coverage rates, we're not going to have a increase for 18 months. That is good. They're using rate stabilization from reserves that they have for the coming year. And then working on budget.
You say that every week.
I know. I need somebody else.
When they said you didn't
No,
have
up
that
here.
yet,
I'm going to read Brad's. Okay. 8 to 10 minutes.
It's like that closes the report. HR.
Well, actually, there is something going on, a collaboration between finance and HR. We're in the midst of the EP transition. The version that we're on is no longer supported, it's antique. And this is a good thing because it means that we're going to be working on one database. There's been some hiccups along the way in that our staff love running reports. And I asked for a lot of those reports, but they have to be recreated now in this newest version, so that's taking a bit of time. That needs to something out. I don't know how in tune you are with unemployment insurance and compensation, but the district is actually on a reimbursing method. A lot of businesses are on a taxing method years ago, and I don't know the exact date, but it's going to be a long time. Minerva partnered with unemployment consultants based out of Arlington Heights, and they serve as our advocate. They watch over the claims that come through. They help us in any sort of hearings in relation to benefits, and we don't pay anything. Those reserves that Sue was talking about, at the time it was set up, they took some of the reserves, set those aside, and the interest that is earned on that money pays for the service. So we are on a reimbursing method, and they do an evaluation every year to determine whether or not that is the most beneficial to us from a financial perspective, and it remains the case. So one of the representatives came out just to kind of say hi, because things are actually kind of quiet. On the unemployment front, so we just reviewed the information, so I thought I'd go ahead and mention that. We've got a lot coming up. This is the time where my department shifts from being so focused on support to actually doing HR-related work. So we've got some events coming up. I know that we've got one contribution and one judge for upcoming chili lunch on Friday the 13th of October. So please, if you haven't marked your calendar for that, please do so. We'd love to have you there. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. For those of you going to NRPA, if you have not yet taken a look at the email that I sent, that's summary of the information regarding your arrangements, reservations, please do so. And if there's any additional information that you think would be helpful, let me know so I can get that to you. October 19th, we are doing our on-site volumetric screening, and that's part of our wellness initiative. We've been offering that. We moved to IPDC, it became an in-house task, but staff is really used to it, and actually within the first couple of days, we already had 52 employees signed up to do it, which is fabulous considering that was only the first go-around and not having to send out any requests for reservations. Part of that is also, that event also includes a flu shot. So if staff want to get staffed twice, they can. And then they all, but it's a nice service. They're already there, ready to go, and we are reimbursed for the cost of the actual on-site screening and the flu shots from IPDC because we have our participation in the wellness initiative. And then working on the dental and vision renewal, those are the 2 lines of coverage and perspective that are in the commercial market. So had some good preliminary conversations about our options for 2018 today. And there'll be more coming on that. Hoping to bring it out. We'll talk specifically at the October 2nd meeting about it, and then I'll bring it to you for approval in November. That's it.
Omar, 19.
Awesome. So I know at the last meeting, last workshop, they talked about some of the PC refreshes that we have going on. That's still going on. We're also about to embark on a huge project, and that's going to entail doing a Windows 10 upgrade. Office upgrade, and it's going to be a little work. But we plan on bringing staff on a little bit earlier, phasing it in department by department or building by building, whatever makes sense. And kind of after talking to Brad and Kate, we gave some great ideas about maybe even wrapping something off to entice people to try it out, look at things before we roll it out. It's change. Change is difficult, especially when it's everything you're used to on a day-to-day basis. You'll also see some 4.0s coming your way in regards to purchasing some more networking equipment that'll take care of the last remaining pieces of equipment that we need to refresh so that everything has been refreshed within the last 4 years, and then that cycle will start again next year. Other than recovering from tearing down the beach and all the windows and everything, that's it.
With the Windows upgrade, do you think it's best practice to do it right away or wait a little bit to see if others implement it? Is there any issues?
Windows 10 has been out for a long time, actually, at this point. And Windows 7 is no longer going to be supported by next year, by the end of next year. So it's actually in our best interest to line up. And actually, another point to that is instead of doing the Windows upgrade and then doing the Office upgrade, we're just rip the Band-Aid off, doing both at the same time, and give people at least the opportunity with time and a little more, face-to-face so that they answer the questions.
With that said, too soon for you to go to like an Office 365 plan?
It actually costs more for us to go to an Office 365 solution per our retention policy. So if we have to retain everything for 7 years. If we were to go down the Office 365 route, we would have to pay for that cloud storage, which is huge. And because we have virtual machines, it's like we have 365 everywhere.
I'm sorry, what version of Office are we in?
2013.
Marketing and communications.
All right, well, there's always something going on in marketing and communications, of course. We've been hosting playground openings. We've actually completed 3 out of 5. We have another one coming up at Riverwalk on this coming Tuesday, the 26th. And then we'll have one more after that, because we're going to wrap up for the year. We're also currently working on, here we are, early fall, and we're working on the program guide production, starting that off. And again, talking about starting early, we've already met with NCTV for the State of the Park District presentation, which is going to be in early February. We've got Liz Spencer here, and her creativity going already, so we're already starting to plan for that event.
Kevin, Parks and Golf.
Yeah, we'll begin with golf first. First, I'm very happy to report that overall combination of all the revenue engines of golf, we are on target and actually slightly ahead of what our budgets are supposed to be. As far as our programs go, we're finding out that maybe some programs shifted from Naperville to Springbrook. So Springbrook is actually showing a group lesson increase of 9% for the year. But on the other side, Naperville saw a decline of 14. Also, our merchandise continues to be very positive with a 25% gain over 2016. We're also offering some very neat specials in September. We actually have a member appreciation day, which is on Mondays, with a fee as low as $25 with a card for our new members, and that is really greatly appreciated and well attended. As far as the park side is going, we're very busy supporting our fall sports programs, as well as, believe it or not, in another few weeks, start to prepare for winter. That will be coming right around the corner. I know the food people will be very diligent about the middle of October, starting to get in all of our snow blowers and everything for work. So it's enjoy the heat, but it's coming. That's it.
Eric,
Yes, I have a handful of items to report on this evening.
and do you have any color pass outs to
Actually, I do have none. I'll answer in a moment. First and foremost is Sue Omison is pursuing a grant through the Community Development Block Grant. As you may recall, years ago, the Naperville Park District pursued and received grants through this program. It's a federal program administered through the Department or the HUD Department, the federal government. But at Central Park and also the ARRCC facility. Sue is pursuing a grant for the warming house. This is a facility along the Riverwalk at Centennial Park, west of the J.C.'s playground. Next year, in the 2018 capital budget, we are renovating the restrooms. There's an ADA accessibility component. And I just want to let you know this evening, Sue's going to submit that grant tomorrow to the city of Naperville, but I have a letter of support here for you, President Riley, to sign after the meeting. So that's the first update. Secondly, the Southwest Community Park, as discussed at the September 15th Parks and Rec Committee meeting last Friday. There is a farm license that we have with the farmer to maintain and farm Southwest Community Park. The farmer also works with the city of Naperville under leaf disposal recycle program. And the farmer every fall disposes of leaves in the economic corridor, which is contiguous with Southwest Community Park to the south. Recently, we had discussions with the farmer as well as city staff. There is a portion of Southwest Community Park, the far west portion, it's about 6.7 acres. It is what you consider low lying. For instance, we would never consider building a building there or a parking lot there. It would be more like a ball field or a natural area when we develop Southwest Community Park. So the thought is if the board was interested in amending the license we have with the farmer, the license we have now is 2016 through 2018, so we have this fall and next fall. And we can amend that license where the farmer would also stockpile leaves on the far west side of Southwest Community Park. We identified about 10,000 cubic yards of leaves could be stored and then tilled into the soil each fall, and that's about 50 cents per cubic yard. That's the going rate in the local market. That equates to about $5,000 revenue for the district. So I just want to present that to the board this evening. As I mentioned, we discussed it with the Parks and Rec Committee last Friday, and there was support for this. And just wanted to see if there is a consensus. If there is, we can bring an amendment to the board for consideration at the October 12th meeting.
Committee, we couldn't find it downside.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next item, as it relates also to Southwest Community Park, included in the 2018 capital budget, we have dollars allocated for a site master plan. This is something we discussed in the staff and the board, and so funds are available to do that. But in order to kick it off, there is an RFP process. So we want to let you know, as far as next steps, we can release an RFP already starting in October. The process of procurement would take probably the next few months, so we do not pay out really any dollars in 2017. It would be in 2018 when we had the dollars allocated. But we just want to let you know the next steps would need to release that RFP. And it would be released to local design, site, master plan type firms. I can tell you this, the scope of work is going to be very heavy with community engagement. As we know, we work closely with School District 204 on their student project. We recently completed the community interest and opinion survey. We're going to be completing the strategic plan soon. So we're going to have a lot of data about our community and its residents, but we also want to go back out to the residents around, especially on the Southwest Community Park, and gather more information about what is this, kind of like as Ray mentioned, past like the last frontier, what is this last 30 acres of development? We want to make sure we get it absolutely right. We want to spend a lot of time working with the residents and developing that scope for that site. So that's that piece.
Well, Eric, what will the deliverable be on that? What will they actually, what will the consultant or what will they deliver?
Yeah, so what the scope would involve is them reaching out to the community, hosting like public open house events, working with staff and coming up with concepts as far as amenities, what can be placed there based on the input received, coming up with a site master plan, and even identifying phases that are being implemented, as well as cost estimates. So as identified in the past, maybe the thought is the interest in developing like a playground and smaller amenities at phase 1, maybe something you could do in 2019, and then there would be a larger phase 2. And who knows what this plan would identify need. It could include some type of facility, maybe like a portable activity center. There's other items that kind of popped up through the community survey process, so we just want to further delve into that and explore those ideas a little bit more. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that whatever their scope is interconnected with everything else that we've already put together and a lot of input, so we don't want them to come and do this whole proposal and not tied in with everything else.
Right, I like start from scratch. I mean, we're going to do staff, we're going to work with them hand in hand throughout the process with the survey that's the strategic plan. They're going to have a lot going on, but then they're going to take it one step further in a way. Next, I want to touch on Fort Hill Activity Center. As part of developing the 2018 capital budget, we spent a lot of time with staff throughout the Naperville Park District and Brad and Sue Nance over at the Fort Hill Activity Center. And one of the things that came up as a need that we found from the patrons is the current showers that we have at the Fort Hill Activity Center. We have 3 stalls on the men's side and 3 stalls on the women's side. And what we're finding, the drop in play, whether it's practices and programs that we have, there's times where there might be more than 3 showers. There might be 5 men that want to use a shower, or 7 or 8 women that want to use a shower. And what we've been hearing from our patrons in discussions is that, well, I have to train. And it might be friends that are on a basketball team that we got to catch a train. We can't get in 3 men shower at one time. So as staff, we thought, well, before we talk about this with the board, let's just see, is it even remotely possible if we wanted to even consider expanding the showers that we have over the activities. So we had brief discussions with the architects, and he gave us some numbers for designing, and it is possible we can add 2 more shower stalls on the men's side and 2 more on the women's side for a total of 5. Now, as you know, there's in the changing rooms, it also has the ability for showers. But what we find is when patrons come in, they have all their gear, they drop in the locker, we want to go back outside and get the changing room, so it's a little point. So we just want to present that idea to you. We also discussed this with the Parks and Rec Committee last Friday, and we wanted to just gather your thoughts. I don't know if Ray and Brad
Yeah, and I remember we talked about this back in 2014 when we were going to design, and I had some questions about showers, and the long and short of it was, we took tours of Trail Stream and other venues. 3 showers was the standard because we didn't have a pool. Pool would trigger at least another shower, if not 2 more. So since we didn't have a pool, and having been and having had a side business, trying to run plumbing, showers are unbelievably expensive. I mean, plumbing is just expensive. So we were comfortable with the 3. This being our first activity center, I had no idea. I don't think anybody else, Brad did, I know Sue certainly didn't, but we would have to drop in play or what have you. On average, we're getting anywhere from 30 to 40 men playing basketball in the mornings early when we open. So we just do the numbers on that, just to start up showers. So it makes perfect sense. The second thing is, there's nothing on the horizon as far as the second center in this town. The survey really didn't point to that. but you're the cry for that, so I would say we need to take care of what we have, so we take care of what the customers are asking for. So I think it's, while it's gonna be inconvenient, and it's gonna be an expense, it's not gonna be millions of dollars. It's an expense, but I think it's money well spent, in the location that, certainly is getting more use than we were going with it.
So maybe I missed it, that we brought up around, or we just wrote order of magnitude, what's the cost?
Yeah, so I didn't report on it. So the cost for estimate for design would be about $38,000, and the cost for implementation construction would be about $330,000.
And that's for a total of 4 showers, 2 events, and the event, or just?
No, it would actually be a total of 6. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I'm thinking of the CDBG project. It would be a total of
4 additional showers. What that also includes as part of this project is the entrance to the track. Right now, it's an open air entrance to the track, as recreational house as far as a control point, as far as patrons that are going out to the track and who should be utilizing the track at a certain time. So part of that would actually be a glass enclosure, much like when you go up the stairs at Fort Hill, where there's a glass instead of a railing, as well as a door with a card swipe that would be part of the project.
In what form do we have this customer feedback? Is it just anecdotal, like the front desk is hearing about it, or do we have any specific, in what form is the data that we have demanding this?
It's anecdotal, we do receive patron comment cards at times, as well as concerns that come directly from the patrons, and staff observations. In addition to the drop-in play that Ray mentioned with the open gyms, the success of the group fitness classes is also beyond what we had thought. 3,000 square feet is our largest wood floor studio upstairs at Fort Hill. It's one of the largest wood floor studios that Williams has designed in one of these facilities. We actually have classes that no longer fit in that room and are moving into the multi-purpose rooms, and we have a class that's actually moving into the gymnasium because we have 60 participants that are coming to some of those group fitness classes at one time. So that's where we're also seeing some of the bottleneck within the locker spaces.
I think the thought of the night, if there is an interest consensus by the board, we can incorporate these dollars in the 2020 capital budget, or we just first see what the thoughts are.
I'm happy for Williams to donate their time and that effort. Because I guess overall, before I start looking out, what's the cost differential? So had it been installed originally, in the original plan versus what the rework?
Pretty much would be the same, except the mobilization and inflation labor we're doing 1 year later. So,
Mobile is not.
yeah, but again, I mean, they built it per the standards at the time. It was without aquatics. We didn't know what the patron needs were going to be until we opened it. We didn't know who was going to be members at the facility.
I guess the flip side of that would be if we built 5 showers and only 3 were getting used. We could take criticism for having 2 showers in the city, then why did we spend all the money? So while this is not a great problem, I think it's a good problem, and we've got people actually demanding and using the club that need a shower.
I'm just, and it's certainly a somewhat different facility, but I've got Edwards Fitness pictures in my mind. They've got 10 showers, 12 showers. Now, I don't know the size of their fitness classes. I assume the women's is the same. They've got a steamer, we don't, but that number, and they've got water. So I agree with you. I'm glad it's getting used. I'm glad it's more popular than we anticipated. I'm a little bit short.
I think what I hear is that we built it according to the best practice that we knew at the time. Our particular situation, we've got people using our facilities more than we anticipated, which I agree with Ray. It's a great problem to have, so.
Well, and we built to the top of the budget, and while it's around, I get it, I wouldn't be shocked by the time we get done with this bad boy, you're about $1.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, I can say this based on the short amount of time from the last construction phase, and we're working with the same designer. I mean, they're going to be pretty much spot on this. And we've done this in the past, and there are improvements in shower stations, they go obviously whatever everyone wants. It's, it's going to be looking at that's what we,
I don't question whether I would need the showers, and I don't question that hindsight is 2021. Monday morning quarterbacks are always geniuses.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna really enjoy that shower, because that's a $300,000 shower. It's just my own, but it's amazing how much things cost, it's just unbelievable.
and then along those lines, as we're talking about Fort Hill Activity Center, another topic we're going to touch on this evening with you is the cafe area. And that's an existing condition. Another firm, White Construction, reached out to me and asked them the same. They have an interior designer who's saying, if we were going to spruce it up, what we're finding is just the people that walk in, just the warmth, being an inviting space. People just, you see those chairs are wide open. And it's like, why are people sitting here? Why do they want to be there? And we had some conversations around that, and they came up with some ideas of what, what some other changes could be done to change the look of it, so there. So this is one idea that they came up with, and this is considered their light option of just making it more inviting.
Was there a table in?
No, it's just, yeah, you go back for a moment.
It's a small,
Just for chairs, right?
Yeah, that's what's there right now.
So it's not inviting you to eat there, it's just inviting you to sit there.
Yeah.
And even if you put a table, I don't want it on knees.
And I would
Put a table that I
I
can eat on.
would ask you all to go back into your minds, other than Commissioners King and Carlson, who are not here. We were given a budget by you. We had to stay within that budget. And this is a reflection of that budget. So, would I have wanted that? Yes. But the budget didn't allow for that. The budget allowed for, go back, that. And that's what we got.
So maybe you've got some research, but I'll go back to my Edwards example. They shut down theirs because people are coming there to exercise, they're not coming there to eat. And I agree with you, right? We gave you a budget and we made choices, and albeit 6 months, a year later, we shouldn't be expanding that budget. I don't know that spending that money gets you anything. Is that one 300,000 too, or is that on top of the 300?
Yeah, and this is just a separate idea. This is totally a separate idea for consideration by the board. What we're seeing as staff, we had a conversation with interior designers, and with 3D modeling, they came up with some ideas.
This is really, beyond the cafe, this entire area is what we consider, it's the main lobby of the facility that you walk in. And what we would like to do is look at opportunities to warm up the entire space through the lighting that we have within that space, through the furniture that we have, or the accents that we have within the space, to create a nicer space for those who are patroning or coming to the cafe to make purchases, as well as during times when the cafe is closed. And they're simply in the facility waiting for someone who might be within the program or in another area. So the overall look and feel right now when you walk into the facility is a very clean facility, but some of the lighting is a bit harsh within the lobby area, as well as it has kind of a sterile feel. We're looking at options, and this is one of the options as far as just trying to create a warmer space and improve the overall space.
And I would say, this is the first time we did a project of this magnitude and this type. So I think to expect 100% perfection in the outcome, I think it's a laudable goal. I don't think it's necessarily realistic. So the idea is to take what we've got to, and I think it's proven out that it's done well. There are possibly some tweaks that we want to make that could improve it. So we came on this decision. Would it have been less expensive to add 4 showers during construction? But we can't go back. So you're where we are. So what do you say here? That counter has seating on both sides. Imagine have all power stations and everything.
Yeah, this is a freestanding piece of furniture that has charging stations.
And this is just a concept. This is, any costs.
So if you did that, if we gave you to go tonight, what do you think membership pops up, 10%?
I I think it's not a way to increase the membership necessarily, but you can, the folks that are sitting around waiting for the kids to get out of basketball or, you know, finish their dance class, you can come down and have a cup of coffee, a sandwich, something, a smoothie, and increase, you know, you have a little bit of revenue coming in from the cafe. Because you may be comfortable for them to sit in, that's all. It's not gonna drive your,
I'd rather sit down and go with it.
Well,
it's gonna cost as much.
Seeing as we don't have any hard numbers to work with, all this discussion is kind of very short. I think the question that's being put on the table is, do we want to look at making some changes to make it more inviting to people to come in the front door?
And that in and of itself, I think, well, I use the golf courses as an example. They'll speak for themselves. You remember way back when we started talking about beefing up the patio and changing the menu and making it more inviting for people to stay. We are up, what, Kevin?
We're up 9%.
We're about creating experiences and obviously value without obviously frivolously spending taxpayer money. I get that. But that alone isn't the only thing we're changing. There's more to the story that Brad will probably allude to in his report, but I'll allude to it now. There's certainly a complete menu shift. And bringing on, I'm not going to mention the coffee company, but it's one that you all know. That will be operating, who most likely be selling their product out of there here shortly, probably across the district. And that's just one of the changes. So, again, is this the be-all, end-all? I think, Commissioner, even with all due respect, that's an unfair question to ask. To tie a percentage of 10% to something. But again, this is a package deal that we're offering as you walk in, and we're offering people the experience to sit there and spend a couple bucks on coffee. At the end of the day, if you all say that's just not an appropriate expenditure of money, we can understand. But it's my job to push the envelope and to do what I think is in the best interest of that facility. Having run something much smaller than that, but understanding a little bit about the business side of that, I think it's important.
Well, I think you brought up a great example with Springbrook being up 9%. Now, percentages are relative on the base, so why don't we look at Springbrook and the cost and the payback period and what you guys know now, that's 2 years ago, right? So whatever we spent there versus the overall increase to see if it's made a difference. And if we can apply that over here with some reasonability, I think that's a conversation we should be having.
But I think the overall concept of this is something that we should further explore, because I go to this facility and I don't, my eyes aren't drawn to this area. I've been there first 2 or 3 times I was there, they didn't know that even existed. So I wanted to get water immediately, and then I was like, oh yeah, go over here. So yeah, we definitely need something to draw the attention over there, and have something to see the parents sitting there, baby sitting there, having coffee or a snack.
Working, it's a good place to work.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would think the other issue, it's real easy for us to get, what is it now, 5,200 members across the board for the whole facility. But if I was sitting in your chair next year, this time I'd be asking how many we would retain. That helps retain membership.
It's something we try to do with our various facilities. When you look at Centennial Beach, over the years, each year we try to add something new to that facility. Try to, whether it was the addition of the sand volleyball court shortly after we opened, the additions of the bag courts, even each year just adding chairs to the facility. What are the things that we can continue to do to keep some of the areas fresh, inviting, especially for those who come to the facility on a consistent basis. So that's something that we also look to here with Fort Hill is each year, what are some things we can do within the facility to continue to improve the facility to keep it fresh and keep it inviting for those who are utilizing it.
Yeah, I think you need to do that with any facility where you have a public coming in, because you want them to notice something that's being done to keep it fresh, to keep it new, to make it want to come back.
And then lastly, for the planning department is at the July 21st Parks and Rec Committee, there was a presentation of ideas in collaboration with the 95th Street Library. And we talked about the Puncher Sports Complex and Public Plaza area. There's a unused area between the 95th Street Library and Puncher Sports Complex. And there was a lot of thoughts about could that be an outdoor classroom? Could be a great place, for maybe some, an area where, people would congregate in the parking lot like a farm park and also utilize that space. Tying in the main users, it's kind of like a campus type setting of District 204, the library, the park district, maybe even the commercial area to the west. And so we started exploring that, and the direction given the staff was to work with the design firm concepts to present to the board. So since then, we commissioned a tech design group, and we're going to have some concepts to share with you. We were planning on the November 13th meeting, but now that's no longer an option. We're probably trying to work with the consultant and get the concepts to you for discussion there. So just a quick update on that. That project is progressing. And again, these are just concepts we're working with the community, and we'll have more ideas of what could be placed there and roughly what that might cost. And that's it.
Okay. A couple of brief updates. Just an update on Centennial Beach now that the season is closed for 2017. We ended the season with nearly 138,000 visitors to the facility. That's in line with our 3-year average for visitors that have come. It's about 6% lower than last year. We found that as we got into the month of August, you may remember the first week of August was actually very cool weather. The month of August just wasn't a great month for swimming, but still, to end the season, basically on the 3-year average, the 6th highest attendance dated back to 2002. So still pretty favorable. Centennial Grill ended the season with its 2nd highest revenue rate. So the Centennial Grill continues each year to improve in its operations and the overall sales that we have at that facility. This past weekend, we had our first Monarch Festival at Naperville Park at the Naperville Nature Center. Angela Karshman and her staff did a wonderful job putting that event together. It was well attended. We had an estimated 700 people that came during the course of the 5 hours that it was holding at Naperville. Had a number of organizations throughout the year, Forest Reserve Districts, Conservation Foundation, so on, that participated in that. And overall, it was just a very nice event and very nice of the weather cooperated since the vast majority of that were outdoors. And then lastly, Naperville Plays. You may have heard of this, but this is a partnership between the Children's Museum, Naperville Library, and the Settlement. It's something where the 3 organizations come together 3 times a year and hold family activities, hands-on activities at each of their respective facilities. We have been invited to become part of Naperville Plays, and we'll be doing so starting in January. There again with the Naperville Nature Center. Our staff will be attending Naperville Plays with the 3 other organizations, and we will have hands-on activities that are more environmentally and nature-based, and promoting certain programs that we have to offer.
Okay, next item on the agenda is future meetings. The next meeting of the Board of Commissioners will be October 12, 2017, 7 p.m. in Council Chambers, followed by October 26th, 6:30 p.m. at the Board of Activity Center. On November 8th will be a special meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners from 4 to 9 p.m. at the 95th Street Library, Room C. Then on November 9th, there'll be a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners at 7 p.m. Council Chambers. On the 11th, there'll be another special meeting of the board, November 11th, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at 95th Street Library. And then on December 14th, the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners, 6:30 p.m. at the Fort Hill Activity Center multi-purpose room. Next item on the agenda is executive session.
Move to adjourn for executive session to discuss land.
Second.
The only thing is if you have any questions about the minutes that need to be approved, we can go into that regime, but nobody has anything else. We can move on to the regular, next one. Any questions? Don't need for executive session.
this to continue keeping the executive session minutes confidential.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Bridget, would you call the roll, please?
Vice President Janet?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Clausen?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Commissioner Edison?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
President Riley?
Yes. Next item is adjournment.
Move to adjourn the September 21, 2017 regular meeting of the Board of Schools.
Motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Opposed?